Hi, I'm Randy Guy, Commissioner President of St. Mary's County, Maryland, and you're tuned in to MACo's Conduit Street Podcast. Whether you're a Maryland resident, a government official, or just someone interested in learning more about public policy in Maryland, this podcast is for you.
Welcome back to the Conduit Street Podcast. This is once again Michael Sanderson taking the reins, taking the microphone, taking the conch shell, and joining you again for another conversation about Maryland policy and politics. Honestly, this is, I think, 3 episodes in a row that I've been helming myself, and I'm getting kind of used to this. So I don't know, maybe this won't be the exception. Maybe this will become the rule. But I'm excited for today's episode because we've got a very interesting and engaging guest. With us today is Mo Hasan. He is a leading voice in the field of artificial intelligence, given a lot of thought to its application in government services and the public sector. And most importantly, he's going to be our keynote speaker at the upcoming MACo Summer Conference. That's August 14th to 17th down at Maryland's coast, beautiful Ocean City. And he's going to help us explore AI's transformative potential and sort of ethical implications in the public sector. So, Mo, thanks very much for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Michael. And I'm excited to be at this conference as well. It's all just an exciting time, honestly, to be alive.
Well, it's certainly an exciting time to be in the fields where you've focused. So maybe take a couple minutes, if you would, and walk through what got you into these fields, sort of where you come from, where you have landed, and where you find yourself in what feels like a revolution in this really interesting and exciting technology. So walk us through your story a little bit.
All right. Thank you. Well, my story is, I don't know if it's very common or uncommon in the Washington, D.C. area, right? Because there's a lot of us who kind of did what I did, which I started my career in U.S. Army intelligence. And then, did a little stint and then immediately went to the private sector. And it was like back in the late 1900s, as the young people like to call it. And during that era, the internet was just booming. And I was very fortunate to end up in tech. And then very shortly got an opportunity at a company called Bell Atlantic Global Networks, which was a very specific, and they still exist now as Verizon Global Networks. We were building the backbone of the internet back then. And I got an opportunity to train the CEO of the company. And that completely catapulted my career into the C-suite and gave me an opportunity to train amazing people all over the world. Certainly in the DC area, I got to work with the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Chief Justice John Roberts, dozens and dozens of VPs at the World Bank Group, a lot of mayors and county officials, and the list is long of senior officials that I've had the opportunity to work with. But my career in AI and my projects in AI actually started, honestly, when I was a little kid. And this is going to sound weird because it doesn't involve technology per se, but as a child, I stuttered so poorly. Like, Michael, you would not believe how badly I stuttered. That the fact that I'm a professional speaker today is nothing shy of a miracle. Right? But I don't know if you or any of your listeners have ever seen a show called Star Trek Next Generation. I was a bit of a geek, or I'm still a geek. What am I talking about? I'm still a geek.
I'm in for that. That's
Okay, so,
Picard and Riker and Worf. Yeah. Oh, I'm in.
Like exciting plots, like the future of what's possible. And one of the central components was that everyone on the ship spoke to the computer on the ship that was this really not a sentient AI, but a hyper intelligent AI that could handle and solve any problem. So as a kid, because I couldn't really express myself openly, in my mind, what I was actually doing was prompt engineering for as long as I could remember. Because I was giving instructions to a computer that didn't understand emotions and needed a logical sequence of steps in order to execute the action. So, a long time of that. And then in about 2001, I started doing some projects with Microsoft on some AI chatbot technology. And this was just advanced Boolean stuff back then. But, the field of AI for most people to understand is that this thing is like 60 years old, and so all along, AI has always been in the backbone and it's always been something that I've been dreaming of. And then when the transformer technology came out from OpenAI, and which is the ChatGPT 4 product that everybody's so excited about. Is that transformer technology, as soon as it came out, like I had this feeling in my gut, like, hey, this is it. This is the thing that I've been like dreaming of my whole life. And the first day I sat down on it, what I discovered is that all that practice of that little kid practicing prompt engineering, plus 25 years of senior management training and development experience, um, was absolute magic. And I found myself just like, talk about right place, right time. And that's really what it is. I mean, I'd love to tell you that I did something special, but without knowing it, I've been prepping for this thing my whole life. So that's kind of my quick story of how I ended up here and how I became so obsessed with AI. And of course, now 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day, I either dream in AI or communicate with AI. Um, it's not too uncommon for me in my social life that my friends are hanging out with me. We have my phone on a little tripod or my laptop, and we've just got ChatGPT 4 open in chat mode. And I'm just asking it the most interesting questions. And I can take anything that my friends want to know or want to think about or talk about, philosophical, esoteric, it doesn't matter. I can translate that into language that the system understands, and then it just continues. And it can overcome any barrier that the developers have put in.
So I like that lifelong path to end up in the right place at the right time. It reminds me like, the classic story that the overnight sensation was years and years in the making. And, this band comes out of nowhere, but it turns out they've been working and grinding and building and writing and so forth and practicing. And then finally they become a success. It sounds like the same sort of thing sort of happened. Lightning struck, but you were ready for having years of thinking and focusing on this kind of stuff. That's interesting. I like it.
Thank you.
So we're excited to have you come to the MACo conference, and we'll have a number of ways that our attendees and conferees can interact with you. But one will be, we'll put you right up front early as a keynote speaker. So, okay, give us a little pitch about what you see as opportunities in the public sector. So we're for the most part, our members of MACo are elected officials. A lot of people at the conference will be people who manage and function a government department or whatnot. It feels like the tip of the iceberg on AI stuff is in the technology sector. Interesting. Oh wow, these deep fake videos, or look at the ability to write all this new content or whatever. But what do you think this means in the public sector? Why should our public folks be thinking about this as well?
So I have a very different opinion than the one you just said.
Good, I'm ready.
Because for me, the potentiality of AI and the ability to maximize that potentiality earlier and more immediate is actually for the average business user more so than the technologist. Okay? And there's a very specific reason why. AI in itself, and what is the recent development? What is going on with this transformer technology of large language models, which are essentially just one type of AI trained on a bunch of different data from Wikipedia, internet, Reddit, wherever, and that makes up one LLM, is that what most people aren't aware of, and this is what I'm going to be really giving in-depth insights with real-time screen displays and real-time magic, that there is something that's available with using a specific methodology that I created, which allows you to do machine learning about you and your organization, your department, your public function, and actually take advantage of that machine learning immediately without spending the millions of dollars on development. Okay, so let me just go back and kind of explain, because I said a really weird thing that many people I'm sure wouldn't understand in the first sense. So when we talk about what makes an LLM useful, a large language model useful, is that not only can it kick out generic information, right, which any of them can do, but what makes it really useful is it's answering questions specific to you and answering questions with the context of your organizational knowledge. Okay, so let me give you a couple of different examples of how this would work. Let's say that you run a city or a county or some sort of township, and you are that person who runs all the parks and recs department. Okay, so we'll just take that particular thing as just a moment. If you consider that if we were in a larger county, like Montgomery County, Prince George's County, any of those bigger footprint
Mhm.
counties where there's lots of facilities and things, the knowledge base that's there is humongous, right? At best, it's a large database that you would need to
Right.
query to get information, right? How many parking spots are there? Are there handicap spots here?
Right.
Which bench
Mhm.
can I rent? All this other data. So imagine for a moment that you could actually have the LLM know all of that information about your organization. So now you get an email that comes in from a resident. Hey, I got a family. I want to reserve this for June 4th. Can you give me the rates for boom, 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 boom? And you can actually just put that information into a simple prompt or even just copy and paste that email and immediately get the answer you want. You could be on the phone with that person and
Right.
do the same thing.
Right. So instead of I'll get back to you in a couple of days, I've got to check 3 different sources and I got to make a couple of phone calls because this is layered stuff and some of it is in a different office and one of them's in a file cabinet. The idea
Exactly.
of, this is, but this is like, this is an asset to the clerical staff or the manager or the person who's trying to coordinate just the scheduling or the facilities and so forth. None of those are technical people, but this is the kind of tool that can save them a ton of time and make them more responsive to their constituents, the people they're serving.
Yes, absolutely. And and if we were to break down the layers of people involved, right? So if we had like at one end of the scale, we've got people that are doing the direct contact with the residents, right? So they're booking, they're scheduling, they're out in the parks, so they're out in the field, right, doing that kind of work. And then
Mhm.
you've got all the office staff that are involved in management, all the way up to senior leadership. Well, on that senior leadership side, let's say that the city just approved a budget for a new park. Right. Well, in the past, you've only been limited to your own knowledge and the knowledge of your team. And then if you go to a conference, right, such as this conference coming up, right, at the Maryland Association of Counties,
Right.
if you go to the MACo conference, now you have resources to other parks managers and other parks directors. But what's great here is with just this large language model, now not only does it know everything about you, you have to remember that it has knowledge of all park systems that have been ever documented. So you can do risk mitigation studies, you can do usability, you can do lots of feasibility, environmental things. You can have all of your considerations done in a matter of minutes, not hours. And there's not a single line of computer programming required. In fact, what's really required is Parks and Recs, right? That you understand your field, that you're good at your field, you have a desire to provide better residential services. Really, that's it. Everything else is kind of a low learning curve. And that's where I see the immediate impact is for those of us that speak the language of, let's call it English for now, right? Even though LLMs work in lots of languages. Those of us that speak English well and know our field well can really maximize this technology today.
So that's okay. So I like the correction because I start by thinking this is a tech tool for tech people, and you're thinking rather this is a general tool built on technology, but it is a tool that's not necessarily for tech people, and maybe some of its most dynamic applications are for non-tech people and for areas right now that are surrounded by non-tech people, and that lack of technology is what you can kind of surmount by these kind of tools. It's an interesting angle, I think.
Exactly. And the lack of whatever technical knowledge that you have, AI can help you overcome that because it also serves as a learning tool.
So can you, I mean, I know that you work with a variety of clients and you have a lot of different partners, and I've chatted with you before, and I know that you can spin a yarn or two. So I'd like you to, spread your wings a little bit. Tell us about a couple applications that you've seen or experienced or that you've been working on where, that sort of like you can tell us how we got to the butterfly sort of thing. A couple stories you can spin.
Yes, yes. And a couple of clients, I'm happy to mention their names. A couple of clients I won't because they're public companies and
That's fine.
you understand. Okay, so let's actually start with this entertainment company that I can't mention. Let's just say that you have heard of them. You've definitely watched their movies, listened to their songs, seen their anime, played their video games, etc. It's not a tiny company. For the last couple of years, we've been talking about AI and training their employees on things. And it's really come down to sort of like a rethinking of how staffing should be done. Right. So this is a human capital issue. It's a very sensitive topic for many, many people, especially in the entertainment space where we still have strikes that are going on in
Right,
Hollywood and other
right.
places around the world. Right. But the reality is, if I can share an opinion that maybe may make me a little unpopular, it's okay. is that when the car came out, there was a lot of horse and buggy people who like to complain,
Yes.
right?
All these jobs and all this tradition and so forth that's going to be cast aside. But yeah, the buggy whip people were a big problem. Yeah.
Yes. And what I think is like right now, what there's to do is to look at in any organization, what is your mission and what is your vision? And let's go back to the drawing board to look at how can you best service the people that you promised you're going to service. And a lot of it is going to involve reimagining things, right? So with that organization, yes, they're reimagining, let's say, how many people they're going to hire in future projects, right? For those big productions. Because obviously, like most organizations, they have a board they need to report to, they have a budget, right? Just like anybody else does. But they're also taking the time to retool their best people, to give their most creative people access to AI training, access to super high-end things, so that way they're advancing the skills, right? So they're finding balance on both sides. On one side, maybe some human capital may need to be reduced, right, to improve operational costs. If you have dead weight, clearly you'd want to reduce that. And on the other side, to really invest in the people that are your best people and give them that give them that skill set. And that's not just on the creative side of this organization. They're looking at AI as a holistic solution from end to end, right, without any limitations. So that's kind of like one place where we're seeing it integrated. But let me give you a couple of more examples. Let's talk about city and county for a second. One of the really great things is there's obviously some organizations that are a little bit more cutting edge, right? Like they're ready to roll. And I'd say that like organizations like the city of Laurel, Prince George's County's Economic Development Corporation, right? I've worked with these groups, and what they've seen is an opportunity to actually increase economic development by bringing AI trainings and AI solutions to the public. Because at the end of the day, really what it is right now we have AI as the ultimate economic opportunity equalizer. You can come out of nowhere, right? No degree. You could be a 6-year-old child. Honestly, I've taught AI to some of my friends' kids, and it's amazing how quickly that they pick it up. And you could instantly transform your citizen services, your residential services in such a rapid amount of time. And, it's not just internal to how you improve as an organization. It's also, if you think about if you're doing economic development, right? The objective, of course, is to increase the tax bases, increase revenue, increase residents in all these places. Well, if you gave more of your people AI tools, then they would be more successful. Because right now, the AI companies aren't winning by a little bit. They're winning by a huge margin, right? The competitive advantage of two organizations, one really maximizing artificial intelligence, and the other one just being really good, but not having AI. It's like the equivalent of trying to do business in the modern world without a computer and without internet and without a phone.
Right. The old wooden tennis racket concept, right?
Yeah, it's like, gosh, you could, but it seems kind of silly not to take advantage of what's already here. And not only what's already here, but the professional accounts on these things are like $20-$30 a month, right? And that's why I say it's a great economic opportunity equalizer. So that's another application where I see that you could be doing that. Another is internally for each of these organizations is to say, like, pick a department, pick a particular function. And then if you just did a little bit of the machine learning, right? And again, just make sure you're at the MACo conference. I promise you're going to see all of it, right? And when you do this little bit of this machine learning, which you can do instantly, like you can create this solution in a few hours, then all of a sudden you can exponentially do more. You can do the work of 10 employees at once. And I'm not exaggerating. If anything, I'm being delicate and light, trying not to scare people off.
Right.
Okay. All right. Can I give you one more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll interject though.
Yes,
so
please.
far as you're talking about these cases, what to me is noticeably absent. Forgive me if this is a sort of sophomore observation, but what I'm noticing is none of these cases are, and so their tech team has decided to do A, B, and C, or they brought in their IT department and now all their computer people have changed the way they do A, B, and C. It's none of that. It's the practitioners in hands-on, the people who are trying to do economic development programs. They're trying to reach the companies who need to expand and grow and develop and so forth. They're the ones who are using these tools. They've got the reins in their hand. This isn't just like a new laptop. This is a tool for everybody to deploy and use. And the on-ramp is easier. You don't have to go take a sabbatical year and take 9 classes so you can learn this stuff. You can do it in an afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. And I would also, Michael, you were so accurate about understanding that this is for the practitioner. It's like one of those things I feel like I don't emphasize enough of. You don't need a developer. You don't need your IT people. You just need you, yourself, and AI.
that rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Michael, I'm going to share another example because this is a practical one. It's one that I'm executing at the moment. And so I'm the executive chairman of a new organization. We're currently in the formation stages. Will be done here very, very shortly. We're putting together an international board for this group. The organization is called the International Institute for Responsible Artificial Intelligence Ethics and Policies. Right, a nice short name, and it rolls right off the tongue as well. But for short, we're going as the Policies Institute, and I bought thepolicies.org, which I think is easy enough. Right? And I've run other nonprofits before. I sit on several boards, and what I wanted to do is really try out an experiment. Could I use my methodology of contextual programming, using ethics, using clear communications, to actually build out this entire organization, design all of the programs, build the content for all the website, build all the social media content, and do everything myself and have it be world-class on my first attempt? And the answer is yes. And I did all of it in very specific time periods. So let me give you an example. I designed all the governance for the organization. So this includes governance for the board of directors, all the committees, all the subcommittees, the change management, the decision-making, the financial auditing, IT auditing, information auditing. I promise you, not a stone was left unturned.
Right.
There would be no board member on planet Earth that would gawk at this and say this was anything but world-class. And so I made a short document with this governance. It's about 80 pages long, right? Because I don't want to write all the governance for all times. I just need something to get started. So that 80 pages of governance is completely error-free, like 100% accurate. And I produced it in under 2 days.
That's astounding. I have some background in this kind of stuff, setting up organizations and writing bylaws and like just the haggling over nuances and commas and phrasing and so forth can frequently take weeks or months and so forth to try and get through those kinds of documents and framings and so forth. And the idea that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of this stuff can be relatively boilerplate, and that if you give enough guidance to an LLM like this, it can be an incredibly powerful asset. That's just astounding. This is an hours long effort. 80-page document.
I mean, the very last time I did this with another nonprofit that I had, it took me and a team 6 months.
Right. Yes, that's what it sounds like. That's old school, right? That's 10 years ago. This was 6 months of multiple people and an iterative process of meetings and refinements and edits and comments in the margin, all those sorts of things, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so it's just being able to reduce all that down, being able to then design. I've got 12 different programs in there and the international presence, including programs in Maryland, and all of these things being articulated in very exact and detailed specs, from technical to executive summaries to project plans to his mission objectives, his project objectives. There's everything I already finished. And so now I'm assembling the website while I'm making calls to some of my friends around the world to see who wants to be on this board of directors. And it would have taken me a year's worth of planning just a couple of years ago to launch an organization like this. I mean, I say a year because practically I wasn't, this is not my full-time gig, right? I have my company. I enjoy a life of leisure. I've got all that other stuff. So it's not like I'd be working on it full time, but it would have taken me a year. And now just to accomplish something like this in a matter of a few days, for me, it's all the deliciousness of efficiency that I've ever wanted as an office geek. Like if you've ever been a geek
Right.
like me, where you're like, how do I press the least amount of buttons, move my mouse the least amount, like use every shortcut possible. Like this is the epitome of all that together now. And I barely push buttons because I mainly just turn on my mic and I talk to the AI.
Right. I mean, to me, it brings to mind. I think there's a sort of a cliche that's evolved over the last decade or two, with the advent of quick internet-based communications and so forth. We now have the phrase like it's the meeting that could have been an email, right? Which 30 years ago that sentence didn't make any sense, but now everybody knows what you mean. It's like, well, we all did the old school thing. We all went to the boardroom, and 15 of us sat in our chair for 2 hours, and we went through an agenda with Roman numerals, and we said these things, and we took these notes, and we took these votes or whatever. And you come away feeling like we could have accomplished this whole thing if just, the manager had sent one note and said, I'm looking for feedback on these two things. And I type my thing and 6 other people do too. And we would have been done in, 7 minutes of email exchange. This is sort of like, okay, this is the project that could have been an AI prompt.
Yes.
as the rapid advanced equivalent of the same concept, right?
Yeah, and I would say nowadays, if you were to like really do meetings, I don't understand how you would do a meeting without the AI on. It should be, you, yourself, and the AI, right? Like what makes your team up, AI should be a member of your team, should be a prominent member of your team at every conversation.
All right. So, all right. I'm struggling to keep up with you there, but I want to play ball and say, if you're like me and you can't quite make the bend to, yeah, you need to have AI on while you're out on your deck with your friends, watching fireworks on the 4th, and you ought to have AI as a contributor to that conversation. Okay, I'm not quite that far ahead, but that's why I can't wait to hear you give a little more long form conversation to our audience at the MACo conference coming up in several weeks. So if you've been listening so far, you understand why we wanted to have Mo Hasan as the centerpiece for this conference. We're going to kick things off talking about an interesting future, advances that are available to everybody, and tools that are already out there. If you don't mind, I want to dig back a little bit, because as you talked about the group that you've been building, one of the words in that multi-word, very official sounding title was responsible. And then I know you made reference a couple of times since to ethical considerations. It's an area with AI stuff that I think I and a lot of people are vaguely aware of, but I don't think I go super deep on it. So for our audience, can you talk through a little bit what you're thinking about the sort of ethics and limitations of these AI tools in virtually everybody's hands these days? Talk about that a bit, would you?
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to clarify just some language that's very confusing out there, because there's a lot of pop psychology nonsense out there. Okay, which is we're going to clarify integrity, ethics, and morality.
Okay.
So integrity is, on a gradient scale, the completeness of something, right? Completeness as designed, like the wheel on a bicycle, things of that nature.
Got it.
Morality on a gradient scale is measured as rightness and wrongness, which can be further defined as pro-survival actions versus counter-survival actions. Again, it's on a gradient scale, and there's no neutral action in the universe, that everything is pro-survival or counter-survival. So when we talk about morality, if you're doing something that's moral, that would mean it would be pro-survival for you, your family, your community, the world, etc. An immoral action would be counter-survival for those parties or whichever party is involved.
Okay.
Ethics are actually the agreements between us. Ethics are the agreements between us, right? So we have ethics in a country, as a citizen, as a resident. We have ethics in our municipalities, in our states, and ethics in our families and our organizations. In this particular case, when I'm talking about AI ethics, I'm not talking about agreements with you and the large language model. I'm talking about ethics as the agreements between you as the AI operator and yourself, personal ethics. Because at the end of the day, there's no one left in front of that keyboard or in front of that microphone, in front of that device, except just you. And so the agreements have to be internal and have to be solid and have to be clear, because the reality of the matter is, and I don't mean to be a sensationalist, but this is the reality of the matter. There's a reason these science fiction movies exist. I hope they serve as a cautionary tale of perhaps like what not to do.
Right.
And even though there's barriers that are put into place, I can tell you this much: within my first few attempts on ChatGPT, I broke through the major barriers and figured out how to destroy the world. And it took me about an hour and a half. Yeah. Now, I'm
Okay,
not going
so
to share with you the
that's a
prompts or the
goosebump.
answers for that, but I just want you to know that the fail safes are not effective.
Okay, so
So
that
the
sounds a little bit chilling, and I'm not sure that the director of Rec and Parks is interested in dabbling with the end of the world. Obviously,
right,
there's a broad middle ground
there's a
between
broad middle ground. Well, I mentioned that extreme because it is something that we ought to take very seriously,
mhm, yeah,
right? Because at the other thing to consider is that a child's curiosity could bring about the end of times. Right, we're in very, very strange times where an intelligent child could keep learning and keep communicating and keep creating, and within a period of time, design things that we've never even thought about before. So it's like, how
yeah,
does this apply on a day-to-day basis? Is I've come up with a set of clear personal ethics values, which I teach around the world, and I'll be sharing those as well at MACo, to give everybody a clear path to walk inside, so that way you know you're always headed in the right direction. And if you head in the wrong direction, you stop the motion and you start a new path. Because that's
right,
part of the ethics thing, is because look, here's the thing. As much as I'd love to think that every single person who works for every government agency is the most moral, most enthusiastic, the most loving person in the world, that's not how the world works, right? We have all sorts of players. So we need some clear guidance on how do we talk to the machines and what are we asking the machines to do, so that way we're not going off that path.
right. I mean, I very much agree with the framing, even though I as a effectively a non-technology person, I'm a gadget geek and I like all the toys and so forth, but I'm not a programmer, and I've sort of resisted the temptation to try and bear down and learn Python and so forth. But these tools are more accessible to somebody like me, but I still do have that a little bit of trepidation because of the things that you're alluding to. So it's in the mix for the aggressive and excited for first early adopter kind of users, but also for the next wave of people like me who would benefit from this stuff by being smarter and more on the ball. So I don't know. I think it's a great topic for a conference like ours. We want people to come away from the MACo conference thinking about best practices, thinking about what they could be doing better or smarter and faster and so forth. And this absolutely fits that category. So I'm excited to have you join us and talk about these topics. I want to give you an opportunity to sort of toot your own horn, talk about your company, and for our listeners who are already enraptured, how can they find you? How can they follow you? And how can they look you up in advance of the August conference? Tell us a little bit about where you can be found.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. So I can be found online at my company site, intupower.com. That's INTU, then the word power.com, like intuition and power, just
Right?
shortened up here. And then this organization's website should be up here any minute now. So it's thepolicies.org. If you want to learn more about AI ethics, if you want to participate in a global voice, helping us define the future of AI ethics and responsible policies and responsible governance. And what we do at the company at Intupower is we focus on training primarily. We do a little bit of consulting as well, but we focus primarily on AI learning solutions to help organizations transform. And so,
Mhm.
very specifically, I would say that my target clientele are those that, if you run a city, your objective is to be the best darn city in the world,
Right? It
right?
better be.
Like, your ambitions are, let's go all the way, right? If we're going to be a government, gosh darn it, let's be the best darn government we can be,
Right?
right?
Right.
And so those are the clients that I look for that have that kind of ambition for their residential services. They want to operate, because in order to do this, there's kind of like two parts of what I help organizations through. One is helping them overcome the emotional barrier to change. Change management has been an issue, didn't matter from every version of every software, everything that ever came out. Change management has always been an issue. So, like, helping organizations through that. And then the other part is to just understand that this is all way, way, way easier than most people think.
Hmm.
So, it's like sometimes trying to convince somebody that just no, just do this. There's nothing else. There's not like you don't need to add anything else. It's just you talking to a machine with this understanding, and all of a sudden you're getting magical tasks done. In fact, like the bane of my existence has become copy and paste, because that's what I have to do the most. And so I've also got a new book that will be out also by the conference called Organizing the Universes. And that's definitely a book for the super geeks out there, because it's on emotional intelligence and spirituality and intelligence in general and economics, and on artificial intelligence. So it covers a lot of topics in that book, because I think there's a lot to organize in all the universes that you live in and participate in. And so I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find on there as the Mo Hasan. That's kind of my handle across all social media, as the Mo Hasan, TheMoHasan. And so I'm always happy to meet new people. And I've got a booth there at the conference at MACo. I've also got a private room that you guys were so generous with me on. And so I'll be doing AI demos, not just what I'm doing on stage, but I'm happy to show you what's magically possible today. And so if you're coming to the conference, please come say hi to me. I can't wait to show you this stuff. I'm a super geek. I'll talk about AI until the cows come home, right? So, please don't be shy. I'm happy to share with you all this knowledge.
Well, I think you'll get folks fired up, and I think you'll have a lot of visitors coming your way. I will just say, for context, we've been doing our conference at more or less the same time frame at the same location for a pretty long time. I've been with MACo closing in on 30 years, and the event keeps getting bigger and better, but it still has basically the same contours. We've been having keynote speakers and kickoff speakers of varying stations and backgrounds over the years, and there's nothing wrong with this, but there is a certain flavor of the speaker who basically parachutes in, delivers their best 45 minutes, gets off the stage, and there's like a car waiting out front. And that's fine. We've had plenty of perfectly great speakers. They come in, they get the audience engaged, and they talk about their thing, and then they're out the door and done. And you were very clear when we started saying, hey, we might like to engage you and have you as a keynote speaker and involved in this conference. You said it's non-negotiable. If I'm coming, we're showing up, and we're going to be around, and I want to be engaged. I want to be available. And if there are other places where I can contribute, please let me do that. It was a refreshing and welcome change for us. So if you've been hearing this conversation on the podcast and you're thinking, I got to get down to the MACo conference to see this rock star, first of all, you're right. You got to do that. And number two, he's not going to be cordoned away. He's going to be out with the folks talking about all these topics. So you got to get down there and be right in the middle of it. And Mo, you're going to be in the middle of this conversation, because apparently that's just who you are. I love it.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I appreciate that. And I am excited. I'm very fortunate. I feel very blessed to live a very happy life. I travel all over the world. I actually don't live anywhere. I just travel full time. And to come to Ocean City, I haven't been to Ocean City since I was a little kid. So I'm excited to do all that.
Well, we measure wealth in a lot of ways, but having a very happy life is, I think, among the best ways to measure things. So hats off to you for finding your way to such a good place. Friends, we'll leave it there for this episode of the Conduit Street Podcast. Delighted to have our guest, Mo Hasan. We're looking forward to our August Summer Conference, and I will drop all the links to the things that Mo has talked about, ways to reach him and his company, in the show notes for today's episode. As always, if you like the podcast, please subscribe. That way, every episode will be sent right to the device of your choice. Follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter. We're not calling it X here. We're still calling it Twitter, I'm afraid. And of course, the Conduit Street blog. So on behalf of Mo Hasan, on behalf of our producer, Chantel Malcolm Lynn, this is Michael Sanderson. We will talk to you soon.